He lied about $1 stock, made millions, and only served 22 months in jail. Then Hollywood turned his crimes into a blockbuster. This is the story of Jordan Belfort, the man who scammed America and got rich again doing it. And the wildest part? People still cheer for him. Bayside, Queens, 1962. A working-class Jewish neighborhood where dreams were modest and ambition had a ceiling. But one kid, Jordan Belfort, had no interest in ceilings. 1 lemon ice, please. For you? 2 for 1, but only if you tell 3 friends. What are you, 12? 16, and I'm gonna be rich. By summer's end, he made 20 grand selling Italian ices. At 16, most teens would have blown it on a Camaro. Jordan? He enrolled in dental school. First day, the dean stood up and said, "If you're here to get rich, you're in the wrong profession." Jordan stood up, nodded, and walked out. Just like that. Because he wasn't there to clean teeth. He was there to get rich. And this was not the path. Next stop, meat. After college, Jordan launched a door-to-door meat and seafood business. Yes, really. You sell what now? USDA Prime, ma'am. Flash frozen, hormone-free, and cheaper than your local butcher. I don't eat red meat. Fantastic. Let me show you our premium salmon fillets. It was messy, scrappy, but surprisingly successful. $100,000 a month in sales. With no trucks, no storage, no clue. Just Jordan. Hustling. Grinding. Melting steaks in the back seat. Late deliveries, spoiled meat, mountains of unpaid invoices. It all caught up fast. Within months, the business went bankrupt. But in the wreckage, Jordan found something that turned out to be his superpower. The product didn't matter. Steaks, surfboards, stocks. You? Yes, you. You could sell anything. And just like that, the salesman was born. Jordan didn't need a better product. He needed a better payout. Enter Wall Street. Jordan landed an entry-level job at LF Rothschild, a legit firm with suits, quotas, and cocaine in the bathroom stalls. It was the 1980s, after all. This was where he got his first taste of real money, real greed, and real power. He learned how the markets moved, how the brokers talked, and most importantly, how they sold. But suddenly, October 1987 came. It's Black Monday. Phones stop ringing. Brokers stare at the crashing ticker. The markets crashed. Jordan was fired. But while others mourned, Jordan saw something else, an opportunity. He discovered penny stocks. Pink sheet garbage no serious broker would touch. Unregulated, illiquid. But here's the magic. 50% commissions. Same pitch, 10 times the reward. No fancy degrees required. Just a fast phone and a faster mouth. So Jordan picked up the phone, called some poor guy in Nebraska. Hello? Mr. Michael, listen to me. This company is tiny now, yes, but it's sitting on a piece of technology that's going to disrupt the entire home entertainment industry. I'm talking about a ground floor opportunity, pre-IPO, completely under Wall Street's radar. The big guys haven't even sniffed this one out yet. But when they do, boom. We're talking a 10x return minimum. You get in now at $1 a share, and in 6 months, you're not calling me to thank me. You're calling me from your beach house in Maui. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm locking you in for 4,000 shares. Sound good? I'm not really sure I understand the company. You don't have to understand the company, sir. You just have to understand the upside. That's what smart money does. They act before the crowd catches on. So, do you want to be first? Or do you want to read about it in Forbes a year from now saying, "God, I wish I had listened"? And just like that, he closed $4,000 with a single call. No rules, no regulators, no breaks, just cold calls and pure adrenaline. He'd found his kingdom, and he was ready to build an empire. 1989, Jordan Belfort was already pouring the next round, and this time, he wasn't alone. Enter Danny Porish, a fast-talking, drug-snorting misfit from Long Island with the charm of a salesman and the instincts of a hustler. He wasn't from Wall Street, and on some days, it didn't feel like he was from the same planet. But he could close, and Jordan saw something in him. Hunger, loyalty, no brakes. Together, they were dangerous. Jordan had the vision. Danny brought the chaos. And from that chaos, they built their empire. Introducing Stratton Oakmont. The name sounded prestigious, like it had a 100-year legacy and leather-bound books. In reality, it was a strip mall boiler room with flickering lights, mismatched desks, and exactly zero regulatory oversight. The early recruits? They weren't analysts. They weren't even qualified. They were bartenders, college dropouts, and neighborhood hustlers. But Jordan didn't want experience. He wanted hunger. He didn't need thinkers. He needed closers. Then came the training. Jordan developed a method called straight-line persuasion, a psychological pressure cooker designed to turn stammering rookies into high-pressure machines. He taught them to bulldoze hesitation, drown out doubt, and guide a prospect from hello to where do I send the check in a single, unbroken line. Soon the office took on a rhythm, fast, loud, and addictive. Phones never stopped ringing. Orders never stopped flowing. The energy was electric, the egos were growing, and so was the money. But Stratton's brilliance wasn't just in how it sold. It was in who it sold to. They targeted the forgotten investors, the working-class retirees, the desperate parents, the people Wall Street ignored. Stratton sold them hope, wrapped in urgency, dressed in false certainty, backed by made-up projections. At first, it was obscure penny stocks, pink sheet garbage with names like BZZT or YUMY, companies that barely existed outside their own press releases. But once the money started flowing, the schemes evolved. Now it wasn't just fake companies, it was real IPOs. They bought up massive blocks of cheap shares, then turned the sales floor into a hype machine. Call after call, promise after promise. They flooded the market with manufactured excitement, spiked the stock, and then dumped everything at the top, leaving thousands of investors holding the bag. It was called a pump and dump. But at Stratton Oakmont, it was called Another Tuesday. By the early 90s, the firm had exploded. Stratton wasn't just a brokerage, it was a carnival. The office? A blur of screaming phones, air horns, testosterone, $2,000 suits, and enough narcotics to kill a rhinoceros. Jordan built a system where fear and loyalty were currency. Top performers were treated like royalty. Bonus checks, vacations, even watches tossed across the office like candy. Underperformers? Humiliated, cut loose, replaced in hours. And then came the parties. Strippers in the conference room, champagne overflowing into fax machines, lines of coke snorted off compliance manuals. Nothing was sacred. Not the furniture, not the company car, not even the fire extinguisher. Someone once filled with whipped cream and tequila? Jordan had officially become a cult leader in Armani. He bought a helicopter. He named his yacht after his wife, Naomi. He owned mansions, Lamborghinis, and Rolexes. And through it all, he preached the same sermon. Success is everything. And if you're not winning, you're nothing. On paper, Stratton Oakmont was thriving. They brought companies public. They raised hundreds of millions. The firm was growing faster than anyone could believe. But under the surface, it was all smoke and mirrors. Because when you can't sell the truth, you sell the dream. And Jordan Belfort had built an empire doing exactly that. By 1994, Stratton Oakmont was on fire, taking companies public, moving millions, and pulling in national attention. But beneath the success, the structure was starting to rot. The firm's IPO model was aggressive, familiar, and increasingly reckless. Same playbook: overhype the stock, oversell the dream, and exit before reality catches up. But this time, they weren't invisible anymore. The SEC had flagged a growing list of suspicious filings. Complaints were piling up from investors who bought in at $7 and watched it crash to 30 cents. Internally, some brokers were starting to ask questions. They were pushing stocks with no revenue, no product, sometimes no working phone number. Management's answer? Close the deal or get out. And while the firm grew, so did the complexity of hiding the money. Millions were funneled offshore through a web of shell companies. Some accounts were under Jordan's aunt's name in the UK. Others were parked in Geneva under company names that didn't exist. At one point, Jordan moved funds using couriers, including a housekeeper, smuggling cash-stuffed envelopes sewn into her bra. Jordan called it asset protection. The FBI called it laundering. Inside the firm, things were changing. Drug use, once a reward, became a necessity. Quaaludes slowed their speech. Cocaine sped them back up. People passed out during calls. One broker had a seizure on the sales floor. Fights broke out over commissions, women, or just too much testosterone. At least 2 employees had to be escorted out after violent outbursts. And Jordan? He was unraveling faster than the firm. His marriage to his wife was disintegrating. She'd find pills in the couch cushions, syringes in the bathroom. He once crashed his Ferrari into a pillar while high on lewds, with his 3-year-old daughter in the passenger seat. Then came the yacht incident. In June 1996, against the captain's warning, Jordan insisted they sail from Italy to Sardinia during a storm. He was drunk, high, and convinced nothing could touch him. The Naomi began to take on water in the middle of the Tyrrhenian Sea. On board, Jordan, his wife, their daughter, and over $2 million in jewelry and narcotics. They had to be rescued by the Italian Navy. The yacht was destroyed. Jordan survived. But something inside him didn't. Back in New York, the walls were closing in. Journalists from Forbes and the Wall Street Journal had begun poking around. Former employees were talking. But most dangerous of all was Gregory Coleman, an agent with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Coleman didn't just see red flags. He smelled blood. He quietly began piecing together a timeline. He pulled Stratton's cold call scripts, subpoenaed wire records, tracked real estate purchases that didn't match reported income. He found that Jordan was withdrawing cash in patterns, $50,000 at a time in cashier's checks, layered through casinos and art galleries. Coleman knew what it meant. So did Jordan, eventually. What Jordan didn't know was that some of his own brokers had flipped. One had been caught on a separate fraud charge. Another was burned by an unpaid bonus. They wore wires, recorded calls, turned over folders, and as the heat rose, more jumped ship, not out of morality, but self-preservation. Then came October 1996. Federal agents raided Stratton Oakmont. They arrived just after sunrise. Phones were ripped from desks, filing cabinets emptied, hard drives were copied, employees were questioned. Someone tried to flush documents. Another tried to walk out with a briefcase full of shredded contracts. It didn't matter. The FBI had what it needed, but Jordan still wasn't done. In early 1997, while under investigation and explicitly told not to move funds, he wired $2 million to Switzerland. The transaction was traced. The conversation about it had been recorded. That single transfer became the thread that unraveled everything. The chase was over, and the fall had begun. By late 1998, Belfort was out of moves. The FBI had the recordings. The SEC had the filings. The empire he built on cold calls and false promises had finally collapsed. And now it was his turn. He was facing up to 30 years in federal prison. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. The charges alone could have buried him. So Jordan did what he always did. He sold. Not stocks, but information. He flipped, he cooperated, he wore a wire, and one by one, the people who once worshipped him were handed over like receipts. Over 30 employees were indicted. Brokers, partners, friends. Some of them had joined Stratton right out of high school. They learned how to sell from Jordan. They followed his playbook, and now they were paying for it. Some served more time than he did. Jordan? He got 22 months in a minimum security facility. No fences, no cells. The guards didn't even carry guns. He played tennis in the mornings, lifted weights in the afternoons, and at night, he wrote. That's where he met Tommy Chong, the comedian from Cheech and Chong, who was serving time for selling bongs online. Jordan told him the whole story. The drugs, the yacht, the envelopes of cash, the lie that became a lifestyle. Tommy wasn't outraged. He was amused. Write it down, he said. So Jordan did. In 2007, he published The Wolf of Wall Street, a memoir that read more like a victory lap than a confession. There were no apologies, no remorse, just yachts, orgies, fraud, and punchlines. The public ate it up. He sold the film rights, he wrote a sequel, and in 2013, Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio turned it into a global blockbuster. The same man who lied to investors was now entertaining them on the big screen. Audiences laughed, critics applauded, and Jordan Belfort convicted felon, former fraudster, became a pop culture icon. But the people he scammed? They didn't get movie deals. They didn't get closure. Most never got their money back. A teacher who lost her retirement. A war veteran who invested his life savings. A family who remortgaged their home for the next big thing. They were left with debt. With nothing. The court ordered Jordan to pay $110 million in restitution. To this day, only a fraction has been paid. The rest? Vanished into offshore accounts, real estate trusts, and legal loopholes. He claims he's working on it. The victims are still waiting. But Jordan? He's doing fine. He's a motivational speaker now, a sales coach, a podcast host. He sells success, teaches ethics, books stages around the world. He wears the name The Wolf, like it's a badge of honor, not the scar it should be. He didn't just escape justice, he sold it. Turned 22 months into a book deal, turned fraud into fame, and maybe the scariest part? We applauded. I was guilty of being greedy, he once said, but so is everybody else. Maybe that's why he got away with it. Because deep down, we never wanted him punished. We wanted to be him